ziua, tuturor. Bine ai venit in Romania. Welcome to Romania. Good day and welcome to Romania. First thing, the most important thing I have to tell you is this particular video cast is brought to you by Timișoara, one of the best beers in the world, and a product of Romania, in case you can't tell by the colors of the flag on the can. This is actually one of my favorite beers. I think we have to go back to Brasov to get my favorite beer. Because if you notice, you don't see any Ursus here.
True.
And it's the Ursus IPA that I like the best. But this is a fantastic beer. And before we get into today's feature, I recalled a story about our first or second day in Brasov, and we'd gone into the old city, and there used to be a pizza place there that came off of the building. They had almost like had a terrace that was enclosed off of the building, and we were in there having pizza because it sounded like a really good idea, and it was a family minus mom because there was no mom there. Father, his two daughters, and the son who were sitting there, and they realized that we were speaking English, so they wanted to talk, and they were from the United States, and they were in the process of immigrating to Romania also, which kind of threw up a red flag because all the times I had talked to him, he never mentioned his wife. And that makes me wonder if the kids were legally out of the United States at times, right? But anyways, I think he didn't make it. He ended up back in the U.S. But I insulted this guy all to death, offended him deeply, because I said what crap American beer was. And, well, you're just anti-United States. Well, no, that's got nothing to do with it. There was a time when Canada had really good beer. And then the companies were bought out by U.S. conglomerates, and the recipes changed. And like Molson Canadian, it was something you could actually drink rather than just pour straight in the toilet when you buy it, like I would today. And the St. Alexander Keith's, when it was a microbrewery, was fantastic beer. But anything that goes, for some reason, anything that goes big becomes garbage.
Yeah.
And that's just the experience, I think. These aren't, the company that makes Timișoara, which is Timișoara, they don't export the beer. So it's local. You're not going to go any place that I'm aware of and get it.
Yeah, and I think, before I left Canada, whenever we go to beer, we were never buying Canadian beer. We were always buying European beer that we could get, or Asian beer. There's one beer from India that was really good, beer from Japan that you were getting.
Oddly enough, I'm not a big fan of German beer. I find it a little bit bitter.
Yeah.
But it's hand over fist better than Canadian beer or American beer.
Agreed.
Italian beer is really, really good.
Yeah,
it's very impressive.
Yeah.
And I had some in Spain when I was there doing the seminar, and that was really, really nice beer as well. My favorite beer above all is Guinness, which of course is Irish. But Guinness is not something that I would drink out of a can. Same with Kilkenny, which is a Guinness product. But Guinness is cold weather beer too. I wouldn't want to be drinking it right now. It's a little bit heavy. But I love the dark beers that are here as well. Guinness has been my favorite for a long time. But I don't think about it too much, because to me it is, I love Scotch, but I'm not going to spend $300 a bottle all the time for the high-end type of stuff. So that's kind of what I consider Guinness to be, as the high-end beer. So it just kind of stays up there. At the CMATC, the RMATC in 2018, a gentleman from Scotland and I drank way too much Guinness. Way too much Scotch, too. And the bars don't close till everybody leaves, basically. So we were there till about 5 in the morning, I think it was, by the time his wife decided maybe they should sleep a couple hours before they went to Sibiu, which was kind of funny. Today, our topic, we are going to talk about the self-defense industry, or lack thereof.
The self-defense experts.
Yeah, I've said many times I have a problem with the word expert. I've never met one. Because when you're an expert, you know everything.
Yeah, it's really it's a word that has been created and used, but it's actually not true.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an expert. You should always be learning. You may know more than a lot of other people do, but then it's your job to share that information with them if they're interested, of course. But I remember long ago there was this advertisement everywhere. If you went to any kind of a martial arts website, this little rollout would come as you were trying to leave, and it was this Captain Chris guy, some ex-military guy from the United States who guaranteed that if you took his courses, you would be safe on the streets. Well, if it's got feathers and it's got webbed feet and it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck, because that's the biggest pile of bullshit I've ever heard. And I did ask many people who were high-end self-defense people, and they went, yeah, well, the stuff's not bad, but, we'll kind of leave it at that. Now, the first thing I'm going to say from the onset is there's nothing wrong with learning any of this stuff. At all. It's believing it's going to save your life is the problem.
Well, I think that, with the example that you gave, so part of the challenge that people will face, and a couple of things. One, what he's doing is this really good marketing.
Yeah.
It's like when the Gracies came out with the bullshit about statistics of 8 out of 10 face full to the ground bullshit. Statistics can be used to make anything become a quote-unquote fact or a truth, when it's all just propaganda and bullshit. But getting back to what this guy was doing, if he's teaching what he learned in the military, that's cool. But his students don't have the military training he had.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have the same outcome he has based upon that.
And when you look at the marketing aspect, everything is a marketing aspect in this day and age. The government markets their propaganda to you. So I'm going to give you a really good example. This may not be true anymore, but it was true back when I used to talk about it. In Canada, a murder, wrongful death, is not a murder statistically until they have a suspect they can arrest. Do you know how that eschews the safety of the country? Oh, our streets are perfectly safe. We have virtually no murders on our streets. Meanwhile, they got bodies stacked up like cordwood, but they got no suspects. But those aren't actually murders, because just because there's a knife sticking out of the guy's eye doesn't mean it's a murder, right? So you have to be, very, buyer beware.
Yeah, well, I think that having understanding about the truth of things, because the idea that actually, you think about it, I think it's pitched a lot, is that people can really fall into the trap of thinking that techniques, or that a certain technique is somehow going to be the be-all, end-all, and be their savior. And learning techniques is good, it's part of the study, but to think that it's all about a technique and that learning more techniques are going to save you isn't true.
Well, it reminds me of that video we did back in the winter of the finger lock.
Okay.
Somebody left a comment on it going, no, you couldn't get a finger lock in the street. Right? Now,
I just got a finger.
Now, after my head stopped hurting for somebody saying something that blatantly stupid, and what I love about something like that is, well, you're going to watch a 40-second video and you know everything I've done for the last 40 years. I need to get on my knees and worship you, because obviously you are the only expert, right? However, I remember somebody saying that to Leon J. And you're in London. And this guy goes, you could never get a finger lock on the street, so Leon said, punch me fast as hard as you can. And the guy did. And he was on the ground whimpering in a finger lock. Got him with a pinky, too. Crying like a little baby down there. Big, powerful guy. He goes, can't get a finger lock. right? Depends how you train.
Well,
this is what it gets down to. How are you training?
Exactly, and it gets down to continuous training and studying, but to also expanding your understanding of your study. I think that's where the people train in a very linear, limited fashion, and they make statements like that. It's the same with the bullshit. These people are saying that pressure points won't work in a fight. Train more, train better,
Train more,
study
yeah.
more.
And well, that's just it. The ego is just so inflated that, if it doesn't work for me because I'm the greatest, there must be something wrong with it. It's you.
Yeah, and you need to look at their, like, whatever their personal bias prejudice is too.
Well, without saying any names, we all know of a former student of mine, who had a problem with every person he encountered. But yet, it was never his fault that people couldn't stand him. Right? Got to look in the mirror once in a while and put that away. Now, speaking of looking in the mirror and putting that stuff away, 2018, spring of 2018, I was invited to go to a seminar in Brasov that was supposed to be presented by, a high-level Korean stylist. That's all I will say about him as a Korean stylist. Because he's not here to defend himself. Right? And besides that, I wouldn't be that disrespectful anyway. And he was teaching the gendarmerie, who are the military police, basically. The local police here are not armed. They don't even have handcuffs. When the gendarmerie car pulls up, essentially, you don't want to be the one. There's problems when they're there. And I've met many of them, especially in Brasov, and these are epic people. Right? So I go for a good walk to get to this seminar. And I wasn't going to participate. I just went to support the guy who was hosting it, who was a friend. I'll say that, an acquaintance more than a friend, but I'll say that loosely. You meet somebody in the city who's in the martial arts, you got a common thread to talk about. So I go over to meet this guy, and he's introduced to me, and I went, oh, I know exactly who you are. We're talking high end of the Korean arts. And I didn't recognize him because it had been many years. And I stopped reading martial arts magazines when they invented toilet paper. Right? Because they're crap. They used to be really good, and they're just crappy. They've been crap for 20 years. And I was like, oh, well, so I introduced myself to him. And he looks at me and goes, I know exactly who you are. You're that pressure point guy online. And I went, yeah, that's me. Okay, thanks, right? So, are you going to participate? And I'm going, no, sir, I'm not going to participate. I'm just here to watch a bit because I have a very busy day ahead of me and I can't stay for any very extended period of time. Oh, okay, well, enjoy this. I promise you'll learn something. Yeah, I bet I'll learn something. I'll learn that you're a douchebag is what I'm going to learn. So, that seems a little bit hard. You see why I'm not saying his name, right? Now, as I said about the finger lock, I don't want to judge what somebody's done based on 45 minutes I watched them perform. However, that being said, as the first thing this guy does is start talking about pressure points and looking at me while he's talking about them, like he has some knowledge maybe he thinks I don't have. The only thing is he was wrong about what he was saying. He was talking about stimulating strike points with press. It doesn't work that way. If it's a strike point, it's a strike point. You're not going to be able to push it and get a result. But he was going through all this, and finally one of the guys that I knew from the gendarmerie comes over to me and goes, what kind of crap is this? Why aren't you teaching this? I wasn't invited. I'm just the pretty guy in the corner with all the hair, long hair. And this went on for a while, and I almost said his name. This guy comes over to me, and he goes, what's the matter with these people? They're supposed to be military police. They're not interested in this at all. I'm thinking, you're taking militarily trained, basically soldiers, even though they're basically the federal police, and you're teaching them stuff that you would teach a civilian, and you think that they're going to be interested in this. Right? It was just a total facepalm event, but he is the expert. They paid a lot of money to bring him in. I'd have done it for free. We'd have had a much better time, and they would have found ways to enhance what they do, because I'm not going to teach them anything new. They're the military police, and they're well trained. It's not like the Windsor police in Canada, who, they get confused when there's a cat in a tree. Oh, that wasn't nice either, but it's true. Right? I go out with Gandalf at 3 o'clock in the morning, going for a walk, and they go cruising by. They always slow down to see who it is that's walking the street that time of day and make sure I'm okay. In Canada, in Windsor, the cops were going 80 kilometers because the Tim Hortons was too far away and they wanted to get a coffee. They couldn't have cared less about the fact there was somebody. There was one time when it was with Fritzy, and he was jumping at me, snarling and growling and jumping because he wanted to play. And a cruiser went by, and to me, that's time when you should stop and make sure this guy's not getting mauled by a dog. Down Riverside Drive. Insanity. But, that's the story. I don't even know if this guy's still alive or not, but...
Well, it's funny because I done a podcast about this topic a couple of days ago, and I was talking to a mutual friend of ours who's like a sister to both of us, who's former police in Detroit, worked homicide, and we were talking about it, going back and forth, and she agreed with what we were talking about. And one of the things that we talk about back and forth is that you have to be able to deal with what's happening in that moment situation, which is where you can't have a cookie cutter way of doing things, because you have to be able to adapt to what's happening. Every situation is different. Every attack is different. Like, what is your physical surroundings? What is the season of the year? What is your mindset? Your mental state, emotional state? Are you caught off guard? Are you by yourself? Like, how many people are there? There's so many different factors that come into it, where you can't do a cookie cutter technique and think that's going to work in every situation.
And it's like before I released the Kosho Jitsu Knife Defense book, she read it and approved it.
Yeah.
Simply because the woman has been gutted before. I have seen her scar, and big hip bone to big hip bone, this guy went completely across her abdomen. That's one nasty scar. Now, they offered to fix it when she had her son, Billy.
Yeah.
They offered to fix it because she had to have a C-section for him because she had a C-section before. And she's going, no, that's my battle scar. Leave it alone. I'm proud of that. I survived that. Don't make it go away. But, the only person besides what we're teaching that she agrees with is Bruce Jutnick. She's never seen any, and she is in the martial arts, she's never seen anybody that she agrees with. And she, like she says too, there's nothing wrong with teaching this stuff, but be honest about what you're teaching. Because all knowledge is good knowledge, unless you start to believe unless it becomes an ideology.
Or a dogma.
Yeah, and that's what it starts to become, is that, this guy taught me this, therefore it is... I got a good friend who used to teach martial arts, Chad Berry. Chad's a good man, and he learned stuff from a gentleman by the name of Tom Schrank. And it's some decent stuff, under the right circumstances.
Yeah. And the thing with that is that he was U.S. Marshal, so his mindset and his approach to what he was doing is very different than what you and I, or what the average normal civilian is doing, because we're not U.S. Marshal, we're not military. So the training and the mindset is very different, and I think that people really need to understand that.
Well, when the U.S. Marshal shows up at your door, you're going to jail forever. They don't go arrest thieves. And the U.S. Marshal who goes there knows he has a problem, And the guy who he's arresting and taking in knows he's got a bigger problem, so it becomes a true combat scenario, which is basically kill or be killed. Because you can't trust the idea this guy's just going to turn around and let you cuff him. You know, it's a different mentality, and that mentality does not carry onto the street in a normal thug against civilian mode.
I agree, sir. I think like when you look at that, the whole concept of a self-defense expert, they're basing that they're an expert because they've had all these physical encounters where they've had to use physical techniques, skills to take care of what was going on. And from one point of reference, you can say, okay, because they have all this experience, they are an expert. But from the opposite and point of reference, to look at that and say, you can say they're completely not an expert because if they were an expert, they would have avoided the physical situation in the first place. They would have had the awareness to not be there, the awareness to see that it was brewing and to get out of there, and the verbal communication skills to use it.
I had a guy send me a message because he's in England. Good guy. And his father had left money in the car. Somebody broke in the car. He also left it unlocked and stole the money. Well, this guy's furious about this. Right? And he says, if I would have caught them, I'd have beaten these guys half to death, blah, blah, blah. Right? So I let him say his piece.
Just the ego coming out.
And well, he realized that shortly after there. And I said, you know what the greatest solution to this would be? Tell your dad to not be so foolish and leave money in the car. That was not what he wanted to hear, but it made him think, and it's the truth.
Another one is lock the doors.
Yeah. But why do you need to leave money in your car? Because, and I explained to him because no other self-defense guy where he is going to explain to him because I don't think they get it. You leave. Let's say you. Most people are going to see us are going to be in the U.S. So let's say you leave a US 20 on the console of your car, and it's an accident. You're going through a drive-through. You put it down. You get out of the car. You left it there. Some bunch of teenage thugs saw it, so they break into your car and they steal it. What problem have you just created? Aside from the fact that you're out $20 and maybe a window. They now know that you've got money that is not forefront in your mind, which tends to lead to the fact that you're probably well off. Now you're looking to be targeted because you're so foolish as to not track where your money is and keep it out of sight. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. The whole idea of being in my opinion, of being a martial artist is to always be under the radar.
Good, sir.
I like walking down the street, and they're afraid of my dog. They're not afraid of me. And then they find they don't need to be afraid of him either. I did have one person ask me about him that wasn't here. If somebody got physical with you, would he get angry? Oh, yeah. He's the sweetest boy in the world, but if you tried to hurt me, he would hurt you.
Yeah, but that's a dog's nature is to protect his pack.
But, people do know what I do for a living because it's on Google. And when they put up a Google map here, they see it. But I don't want people to look at me and go, well, he looks like whoever. We'll pick on Jean-Claude Van Damme for the moment, right? Not that he was actually a martial artist, but we'll pick on him for a moment. Kind of like David Carradine. But I took karate when I was 11. Yeah. So did a million other kids. But I've had, when somebody says to me, well, you don't look like a martial artist, my first words are, oh, thank you. I don't want to look like that. I just want to look like some old fart with long hair that they can't figure out.
And that's the thing, because if you look like you're physically skilled, people know that and see that, and then there's a challenge, and there's always someone who wants to be tougher than you.
You can walk very confidently without looking arrogant.
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
And that just means because you are.
Yeah. Well, I think what you just should point out is we should also point out that there's got the two extremes. You got the extreme of being overconfident, arrogant, looking like you're trained, which is going to cause problems and bring attention to you. Then you got the other extreme of being so insecure that you're going to attract the bully, the aggressor, because he wants a victim, and the way you carry yourself with your body communication and your posture screams victim.
Exactly.
You want to be in the middle.
Well, the victim thing, too, kind of reminds me of immigrants. And somebody's going to go, oh, you're a racist. I'm an immigrant. I immigrated to this country in 2016. When you go into a new surrounding, such as moving to a country like Romania that has its own distinct language, your confidence takes a hit. Why would your confidence take a hit? Because you're kind of worried somebody's going to want to talk to you and you can't communicate. It's a very humbling experience, right? And it will take your confidence down. So you could behave like so many people do and be a victim because the country's mean to me. Or you could realize that, well, hey, I chose to go there. Maybe I should learn the language if I want to feel comfortable. Or at least enough to get by. You don't have to be fluent. And the funny thing is once you start to make the attempt to talk to people in their native tongue, a lot of them know English and be happy to talk to you in English because they see your effort. Right? And I mean, we're very blessed in this country that violent crime is almost non-existent. But that comes because communism wasn't that long ago, and it's still fresh in their mind, the problems that they had then with violent crime. And they do not want to go back to that ever. And you'll find that that's true for pretty much all of East Europe. And that's the truth versus the propaganda that you will quite often hear. Because I do promise you the things you think are going on in the world are not what's happening. That's the story they're telling you while they do something else.
Yeah.
I love the self-defense industry. I do. But
it's a continuous study.
It reminds me of a guy that Dillman had at one of his camps. He was supposed to be a gun expert. Well, he wrestled alligators.
Alligator man.
Yeah. And I was standing talking to a Chicago cop while this was going on because I was not impressed. I said to them, his name's Dusty Seals, I said to him, this looks like complete crap to me. He goes, well, it's great if you want to die. Because you cannot disarm somebody with a gun. You're a fool if you think you can.
You should give some background on Dusty too, sir.
Well, he was with George when he was a little kid. When George had a school. And he wanted to teach what he knew to the Chicago police because he was living in Chicago and they wouldn't have it because he wasn't a cop. So he became a cop so he could teach them. And he discovered the hard way, and I've only been to Chicago once, and it's kind of a scary city. I hate to think of what it's like now because this was in 2003. But he ended up out on a call in a park, and the man that he was after was high on PCPs. Well, when a guy's high on PCPs, he truly is, from the waist up, very, very powerful. Well, he got into it with this guy, and it went on for a very long time. This guy was much older than Dusty, so Dusty had the ability to fight longer because of the age difference. But he finally managed to take him out at Spleen 11, which was how he brought him down. By that time, other cops had showed up, and they did the arrest. If memory serves me, Dusty said that he was in the hospital for a week after that meeting he took there. But he said that the pressure point thing was the only thing that worked. But he trained in it properly. He knew how it worked. Now, I watched a thing on Instagram. It was an accident, really. Because I don't do social media. People send me stuff all the time, and I wish they wouldn't, because I'm not going to go look at it. Same reason I don't drink out of the toilet. I can have a beer. Why would I drink out of the toilet? And this guy was showing off, taking a gun away from a guy. And I will tell you, man, it was pretty to watch. This man has great skill. The arms up, boom, all of a sudden he's got the gun. The only part that was missing was the fact that he wouldn't be holding the gun because his brains would have been all over the guy behind him. That's the truth of it. Is there anything wrong with learning how to do that? No. It's cute. Do it. Learn it. It's a good skill. Just don't think it's going to work. That's all. And that's what it was with Alligator Man. He's going down and he's doing an X block going up to avoid being shot with this thing. Yeah, but dude, the guy behind you just got shot, and guess what? Under certain state laws, you become negligent or something. I forgot what the term was for it. But you're in trouble for doing that and getting somebody else killed. Right? If you're going to do stupid things, make sure you know what the laws are. That was actually the last time that I cut myself. That was the last time that I was ever at the camp, because I was just so disgusted this guy was brought there. Because I got nothing good to say about him. Especially when he was sitting next to me at dinner and asked me who the clown was across, which was Steve Stewart.
That's another story.
Well, I think I can take him. So, being the troublemaker I am, after everybody, had about 3-4 hours out of the campfire drinking, I went and told Steve what the guy said. Kind of funny. Steve was not amused. They had a confrontation. Nothing came of it, but I thought it was funny. I didn't go and watch, because it's not true that when you set a fire, you go back and watch it. You better set a fire and go stand way far back and watch it burn. It's a lot more fun that way. If you ever get a chance to work with Steve Stewart, he's the best in the world at back pressure plates. Bar none. If I work hard enough and long enough, maybe I can make 2/3 of what he is capable of. But man just amazes me. And as far as a doctor of acupuncture, wow. I've seen him perform miracles on, especially he works mostly with animals now, because like everybody else, he doesn't want to work with people. Animals don't have politics. It's great. But amazing stuff that he does. Couldn't speak higher of a person than him. When I was in Canada, I didn't get a chance to see him, but times were weird then, so.
Sure.
There wasn't even public transport at that point. Between cities, that is.
Yeah.
You have anything else to add, or?
No, I think otherwise, sir.
I can't think of anything else myself. Yeah, but realize, I'm not telling you not to study this stuff. Study anything you can get your hands on. Just keep in place.
I think if you look at the whole thought about self-defense expert as like looking at a politician or the government and believing that they're good and that they're ethical, like.
Well, one of the funny things that I get out of people I know in Canada a lot is, well, what do you think of Pierre Poilievre?
Politician.
He's a politician. He's a career politician. He's saying the right things.
At the right time.
At the right time. He's a very intelligent man. However, I also remember when he was the finance minister for Stephen Harper, and he sounded just like Trudeau does now. So, fool me once, shame on you. Keep fooling me for the balance of my life. I'm an idiot. Maybe he will become prime minister. Maybe he'll keep his promises. I tried to say that with a straight face. The only thing I'll comment on that is there's not a political solution to a political problem. The problem, you cannot, as Einstein said, you cannot fix a problem with the same minds that created the problem. And so, it's time to take a good solid look at that whole situation. Things are changing dramatically in Europe very, very quickly. And that's fun to watch. But the question is will it stand or not? A lot of new, fresh faces and very people with a lot of really big ideas. See how it goes. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And until next time, talk soon. Ciao.